from Baylor University, Dr. Byron Johnson. And Dr. Johnson, thank you so much for coming on the program.
My pleasure. Good to be here.
Great to have you. So the Heritage Foundation yesterday held a discussion on your book, Eagle Scouts Merit Beyond the Badge. This is a book, basically the results of a 2-year-long study into the effects of being an Eagle Scout?
Yes.
Okay, so what exactly were you looking at? I mean, what were you measuring when you looked at the Eagle Scouts and what they went on to do?
Sure. Well, what we did was we took about 6 months, first of all, to build an in-depth questionnaire, a survey that we could administer to a random group of Americans. And so it took us about 4 months of sampling because we attached a couple of questions on the Gallup nightly poll just to ask people if they'd ever been in scouting, just to see if we could identify who were scouts and who became Eagle Scouts. And so we were able to compare scouts to non-scouts and then compare Eagle Scouts to regular scouts, and to do it in a way that was representative and national, and that had never really been done before. And so, we asked all kinds of questions. The word Boy Scouts never appears anywhere in our survey, so if you wound up taking the survey, you would have no clue that it was a survey with that in mind. But we did ask all kinds of questions about leadership and questions about ethics and, you name it. We put a lot of questions in there. And when you analyze the data, it's pretty compelling. The Eagle Scouts stand out so dramatically from everybody else on so many different issues. Every now and again when you do these studies, you hope to find some significant effects, but we found so many significant effects. I mean, they're from goals, just setting goals and then achieving goals, be those financial, professional, even spiritual goals. Leadership, they're much more likely, Eagle Scouts are, to be leaders in their place of employment or in their communities. They're more civically engaged. They do more volunteerism. They have respect for people, even though there are a lot of people these days that are not too tolerant of Boy Scouts.
Right.
Boy Scouts are pretty tolerant of everybody else. So, you name it, from giving away their time and talents and treasure, it's hard to beat an Eagle Scout.
When you and I will admit, I'm not an Eagle Scout. I have a nephew who has attained the rank of Eagle Scout. I have another who hopefully will, and hopefully one of my 2 remaining boys will attain the rank of Eagle Scout. Because, I think what your study shows kind of confirms the gut feeling that a lot of us have when we get a chance to meet an Eagle Scout or talk to an Eagle Scout. To me, in a lot of ways, Dr. Johnson, it's the same as talking to like a young competitive shooter. And a lot of times we may see some overlap there. Mm-hmm. They just seem responsible beyond their years. They seem more mature beyond their years. A lot of times you'll be talking to an 18-year-old and they'll come across very much as an adult.
Well, it's because they appreciate so many different things. They read. I mean, that's one of the things that scouting encourages, is not just to do recreational kinds of things in the outdoors and to be physically fit. They encourage young men to read everything they can get their hands on, and then they encourage them to do community service. So, I mean, it is kind of, the study does confirm what's obvious to most of us, and that is that these guys are different. And So, I expected to find some things, but not this many things. And I will say this, the other thing that we found that was significant is the longer you're in scouting, even if you don't make it to Eagle Scout, the longer you're in it, the more positive are the effects. And so for a lot of kids, only about 4% achieve the rank of Eagle. And I've talked to so many since the study came out, and they said, I never made it to Eagle. But the fact is, just participating in it for several years does show effects. And, of course, then the longer you persist. And that's the other thing, too. These people, it takes 21 merit badges and then this huge service project that they have to complete. So you really have to have a lot of persistence to make it all the way. And I think that what you see is these effects last for a lifetime. And so many of these people that we interviewed, from 18 to in their 90s, basically said that it was, a lot of them said it was the most important achievement of their life, that the way they raise their children, the way they treat other people, the way they act in their business is related to what they learned in this scouting experience. And that's pretty amazing.
That is pretty amazing. But, when you think about it, Dr. Johnson, not only does it take a certain type of scout, I think, to attain the rank of Eagle Scout, it takes a certain kind of parent.
No question.
To put in the time and effort right along with their child. And maybe, maybe that has something to do with it as well. If you've got the type of, mom and dad or mom or dad who will, work with you to do this and to take that time, it means you probably are being raised by an involved parent.
You've hit the nail on the head. And so it is an enormous commitment of time on the part of parents for kids to make it. And, we're seeing fewer and fewer kids in scouting. That's not an unusual finding these days. And it's a concern. If scouting is good for society, then you would hope that we'd have more and more of them instead of fewer. But we still have about 50,000 a year that are becoming Eagles, and there are over 2 million kids a year involved in scouting. So it's still a big number. And I think that Boy Scouts, to their credit, when we first started this study, they said, we don't want to celebrate the 100 years that we just finished. We're interested in how we can improve scouting for the next 100 years, and that's what we hope the research will help us do. And, they want to be relevant. And so I will tell you this, we just were funded to do a new longitudinal study that we're very excited about that will allow us to track kids when they first get into scouting and stay with them through time. And these kinds of studies take a long time, and they're labor-intensive and very expensive. But we're excited about what we might find, and we're going to be able to compare urban and suburban kids, and we're going to be able to look at kids who come from either single-parent households and maybe kids that don't have the support to see, if they can still make it somehow, and if scouting can, maybe help in those cases where they have some deficits.
Awesome. Hey, Dr. Johnson, thank you so much for your time tonight, sir. Real pleasure talking with you, and we wish you the best of luck with the new study.
Thank you so much.